She did this thing with her hand lately, like she was constantly brushing off invisible dust from her shirt. Not once or twice, but over and over like a nervous tick. That's what caught my attention first, not the late nights, not the fake phone calls, not even the sudden interest in Pilates when she'd sworn for 2 decades that yoga people had more sense. It was the way her fingers danced on her sleeve like they were itching to confess something her mouth never would. I hadn't slept properly in weeks, but you learn to function with heavy eyes when your gut starts whispering secrets your brain isn't ready to accept. You smile at neighbors. You nod at colleagues. You even laugh at the news. But inside, something hardens, sharpens, waits. It was a Tuesday. The kind of day so boring it hides ambushes in its silence. I came home a little earlier than usual. My meeting downtown had ended ahead of schedule, and instead of telling anyone, I just drove straight home without a word. No calls. No texts. No warnings. Our house was quiet when I walked in, too quiet for 5:42 p.m. She always had the TV on when she was home alone, even if she wasn't watching it. Some cooking show with people screaming about raw chicken. But there was no sound this time. No smell of anything on the stove either. Just stillness. The kind that carries weight. Her car was in the driveway, but she wasn't in the kitchen. Not in the living room. I found her upstairs, standing in front of the full-length mirror in our bedroom, adjusting her blouse. That's not what hit me. What hit me was the man's coat on the chair. It wasn't mine. No, mine was still hanging by the door where I'd left it 2 days ago. This one was navy, cashmere, and too new. I didn't touch it. I didn't even need to. The silence in that room did all the touching for me. She turned around when she heard me. Didn't flinch. Didn't gasp. She didn't even look surprised. Instead, she smiled. "You're home early," she said. Like I was the one interrupting something sacred. I didn't speak. Not yet. I just looked at her. Not her face. Not her eyes. I looked at her hands. They weren't brushing dust this time. They were frozen in midair, mid-button. And they were trembling. The bathroom door creaked a second later. He stepped out. I don't remember his name. Maybe I never cared. He had that polished, shiny look. The kind of face that probably smiled through board meetings and called his mother once a week to keep his inheritance intact. He was tucking in his shirt, and for a second, I thought he might actually try to shake my hand. That was the first moment I laughed. Not loud. Just one of those short, sharp exhales that says more than a monologue ever could. "I didn't know you'd be back so soon," she said, this time without looking at me. The guy mumbled something, apologetic, useless, and tried to slide past me like I was furniture. I didn't move. He brushed my shoulder. That was his first mistake. His second was existing. I didn't touch him. I didn't need to. "Leave your coat," I said. Calm and clean, like I was asking someone to set down a wine glass. He froze. She didn't say a word. Her lips parted, but no sound came. He looked at her. She didn't even nod. He left. We stood in that room for 6 full seconds. 6 seconds of silence so loud it felt like a scream under a pillow. And then I turned to her, finally ready to speak. "Was it worth it?" I asked. She laughed. Not because she was amused, but because she was cornered, and some people react to exposure with arrogance. "You don't get to ask that," she said, stepping closer. "Not when you've been pretending to care for years." There it was. The rewrite of history. She was already painting herself as the victim, the oppressed, the emotionally starved. Like this was my fault. Like I should have seen it coming and thanked her for her honesty. But I didn't argue. I didn't rage. I watched her. Every lie she was about to spit had been rehearsed, crafted, wrapped in perfume and pity. And I let her start, because she had no idea what was coming next. She didn't know about the meetings I'd had over the past 6 months. She didn't know that while she was learning someone else's body, I was learning everything else. Her passwords, her spending, her patterns, and most importantly, her blind spots. She didn't know about the account. The one with 8 digits. The one she never knew existed. And while she gave her little speech about how we grew apart, and this wasn't about him, it was about her finding herself, I listened like a man taking notes at a seminar. Because this wasn't about catching her. It was about timing. And my clock had just hit midnight. She kept talking, like words would soften the blow she'd already delivered. Pacing now. Not nervously, deliberately. Like she was on stage and I was the crowd. Like she still believed she had control over the narrative. "You think I wanted this?" she said, gesturing toward the empty doorway where her lover had just vanished. "You think I planned for any of this to happen?" I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, but because she didn't deserve them yet. She kept going. "You've been emotionally absent for years. I've tried, Jack. I really tried. But living in a house where nothing moves unless you say so, it's suffocating." There it was. The pivot. The gaslight. The rewrite. I could feel it, her trying to erase the mess she made with a brand new fiction. One where she was the prisoner and I held the keys. One where she was somehow noble in her betrayal. And yet, the irony? She had no idea what I'd been doing in those emotionally absent years. I walked past her while she kept spinning the web. Down the hall into the home office. She followed, still talking. "Do you even know what it feels like to be invisible in your own marriage?" I needed something real. I needed to feel wanted. I reached into the bottom drawer and pulled out the folder. Leather-bound. Cold. Heavy. Dropped it on the desk between us. She blinked. "What is that?" she asked, her voice losing just a bit of its performative clarity. I flipped it open. It was all there, prints of transactions, bank statements, property deeds, offshore wire logs, investment certificates, and a letter from an attorney she'd never heard of. Her eyes scanned the documents. Her lips moved but said nothing. "You've been invisible?" I said finally, locking eyes with her. "That's funny. I made sure you never saw this. 10 years ago I started something. Just in case." She didn't get it yet, so I kept going. "I built it out of nothing. Diversions. Smart hands. Trusted ghosts. The kind of money no one finds unless I want them to." She reached for a paper. Read a few lines. Her face shifted, like someone watching their future dissolve mid-sentence. "You hid money from me?" she asked, suddenly offended. As if that was the betrayal. 10 million, I said. Her mouth opened, closed. Opened again. You kept $10 million from your wife?" "No," I corrected. "I kept 10 million from this version of you." The silence that followed wasn't shocked. It was strategic. She was recalibrating. Then came the pivot. "You're really going to use this against me?" she whispered. "After everything we've built? After everything we've shared?" Now she was using we again. Like a switch flipped. She even stepped closer, hands soft now, voice low and syrupy. The betrayal wasn't even cold yet and she was already trying to negotiate her way back into comfort. "I could forgive you," she said. "We could fix this. We could. You think this is about fixing something?" I cut in and my voice wasn't loud, but it was final. No. This is about finishing something." She froze. Then the bitterness spilled back in. "You're not the man I married." And there it was, the last resort of someone who's already lost the upper hand. "No," I replied. "I'm not. That man died the second you made a fool out of him in his own home. And still, I didn't yell. Still, I didn't break anything. I just picked up the folder, flipped to the last page, and slid it toward her. It was a letter, a resignation, hers, crafted by my lawyer, dated for the following Friday, signed in digital ink. Her name, her confession, her exit, tied in a bow and backed with a clause. "Take the settlement, vanish quietly, and keep what little dignity you still have. Or fight, and lose far more than your reputation." She stared at the page, then at me, and for the first time that evening she didn't speak. Because the game was over. Only she didn't know. This was just the first move. She didn't touch the letter. Just stood there with her arms crossed, posture tense but unshaken. Her eyes narrowed, but not in fear, in calculation. That was her default. Measure, adapt, survive. "I'm not signing anything tonight," she said finally. Her voice was calm now, lower, almost soothing. But I'd seen behind it. Once you hear someone lie with your name in their mouth, nothing sounds sincere again. "Did I ask you to?" I replied. The words landed sharp and fast. Her mouth twitched and that momentary flash of uncertainty returned. She was losing her footing, and she knew it. For someone who prided herself on staying 2 steps ahead, this was unfamiliar territory. You think you're in control because you've got money hidden in some shadow bank and a lawyer with a vengeance, she said, pacing now. You think that makes you smarter than me? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She kept going. You don't know how the real world works, Jack. People like you who keep everything bottled up and pretend to be the martyr, you break first. I watched her walk toward the window, turn her back to me. She always did that when she felt cornered. Created space. Gave herself room to breathe, to twist reality in her favor. I made one mistake, she said. One. I walked over slowly, each step deliberate. Stopped right behind her, just out of reach. You didn't make a mistake, I said. You made a series of decisions. Deliberate ones. Repeated ones. And you made them in our house. She turned slowly. Her eyes had changed. The mask was gone. For the first time in months, maybe years, I saw the version of her that didn't perform for the world. The cold, tactical version. The one that hadn't married me for love, but for leverage. I saw her. You think anyone's going to believe your story? She said, soft but sharp. You've built your life on being the reasonable one. You start unraveling, start airing this in court, and no one's going to side with the bitter husband clinging to his secret fortune. I smiled. You're right, I said. They won't believe me. I walked back to the desk, pulled out another document from the same folder. A flash drive clipped to a page. But they'll believe video. That stopped her. What video? She asked, slower now. Cautious. I've had cameras in the house for 6 months. I said, casually, like I was commenting on the weather. Discreet. Motion triggered. High resolution. They've caught every visitor. Every book club night. Every goodbye kiss at the door. She blinked, then narrowed her eyes. That's illegal. No, I corrected. What you did was immoral. What I did was intelligent surveillance on my own property. She reached for the flash drive. I didn't let her touch it. Don't bother, I said. There are copies. Safe places. Her confidence drained from her face like wine from a cracked glass. No more comebacks. No more theatrics. Now she was scared. Good. She walked away from me, deeper into the room, turning her back again. This time not for space, but because she needed to regroup. Her silence wasn't power anymore. It was desperation dressed up as composure. I want you out of the house, I said flatly. By the end of the week. Her head turned slightly, just enough to catch my tone. You don't get to make that call. Oh, I said. But I do. The title is in my name. You never asked. You just assumed everything was shared. That was your second mistake. She flinched. You married a man who listened more than he spoke. I continued. You thought that meant I was weak. That I was simple. That I was safe. I walked to the doorway. Turned back one last time. But I don't build things unless I know exactly how to dismantle them. I left her standing there, quiet, still. No dust brushing this time. No speeches. Just the slow, dawning horror of a woman who realized too late that the man she betrayed had watched her write her own ending line by line. And the final paragraph hadn't even started. She didn't leave the room for over an hour. I sat downstairs, lights off, sipping scotch in silence. I didn't drink often. But that night, the burn in my throat reminded me I was still alive. Still in control. I watched the street outside, the wind pushed the trees sideways, listened to the ticking of the wall clock like it was a countdown to her next move. And sure enough, it came. She padded downstairs barefoot, no longer wearing her performance face. Her voice didn't have the fake warmth anymore, it was flat, plain, like she was trying to figure out who she needed to be next. We need to talk, she said from the doorway. Too late for that, I replied without looking at her. She walked closer, slowly, carefully, like the house was suddenly full of landmines. You're making this uglier than it needs to be, she said. You want me out? Fine. I'll go. But if you think I'm going quietly, I turned to her. Stop. She froze mid-step. Stop pretending like you have leverage, I said. You don't. You gambled everything. I just let you believe you were winning. She swallowed. Her voice dropped even lower. I could tell the kids. There it was. Not a threat. A weapon. She didn't even blink after saying it. Just stood there waiting to see if it landed. Trying to hit where it still hurt. I could tell them you've been lying. Hiding money. Recording me. I stood up slowly. Not angry, just done. Do it, I said. Go ahead. But when you do, make sure you also tell them who snuck strange men into their childhood home while their father worked to pay off their tuition. Make sure you tell them about the bottle of wine you shared in our bedroom at 3 p.m. while pretending you were out volunteering. She stared at me, jaw clenched. Tell them and I'll show them, I said, tapping the desk where the flash drive had Saturday, and when I'm done, they'll realize what I did wasn't about revenge. It was about respect for myself. For them. She didn't speak. For the first time, she truly looked cornered. And then something unexpected happened. She cracked. Her voice hitched. The tightness in her jaw relaxed. Her shoulders dropped just slightly. Her eyes didn't water, but they blinked too quickly. Her breathing changed. She stepped forward, reached out just once toward my arm. Jack, she said. Not the voice she used for arguments or performance. Her real voice? Smaller. Raw. I messed up. She said it like she wanted me to forget everything else. Like those 3 words would patch 1,000 fractures. I wasn't trying to destroy us, she said. I was lost. Lost people don't betray, they disappear, I replied. You didn't get lost. You went exploring. Her hand stayed outstretched for another second, then dropped when I didn't move. Do you love him? I asked, watching her face. She didn't answer. That was enough. You don't even love the guy, I said, exhaling sharply. You just loved what he made you feel. Seen. Desired. Young. Someone's new toy. She winced. The truth hurt more than the anger. It was never about him, she finally admitted. No, I nodded. It was about ego. Yours. She looked away. Her hands were trembling now, but she folded them in front of her like she was trying to appear composed. You'll get your settlement, I said. You'll walk away with enough to be comfortable. But not the house, she asked, almost whispering. I stared at her. You already burned this house down. I'm just the one sweeping the ashes. She didn't reply. She walked away slow, like her limbs weighed too much. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell. She just climbed the stairs like someone heading toward a sentence instead of sleep. That night, I sat by the fireplace, the folder open beside me, the drive locked in the safe. I had every legal piece I needed. But what haunted me wasn't the documents. It was how easily she'd erased 25 years with a stranger's hands. And how calmly I was planning to erase her. She was gone by Friday morning. Not gone as in left with dignity and a suitcase. No. She left like someone being evacuated, rushed, tense, disoriented. I heard her upstairs before dawn, zipping bags, making quiet phone calls. I didn't interfere. I just sat in the kitchen drinking coffee as the sky outside turned from deep gray to pale blue. She came down dragging 2 suitcases, wearing sunglasses indoors. Even at her lowest, she couldn't give up the illusion of control. She paused in the hallway, keys in one hand, coat in the other. Her mouth opened. She was about to say something. I could feel it. But then she looked at me and thought better of it. Smart. She walked out without a word. And just like that, the woman who used to ask me to warm her feet under the blanket every night was a ghost. What came next wasn't grief. It was precision. I called my attorney at 9 a.m. sharp. The papers were already drafted. All that remained was her signature. And she knew now she had no bargaining chips left. The property transfer had been filed. Her name wasn't on the deed. She'd signed that away 10 years ago when I refinanced. She'd never noticed. And the account, the $10 million, already moved, broken into smaller entities redistributed. She wouldn't be able to touch a cent without triggering alerts. If she tried to get clever, every move she made would leave a trail straight to a wall. I didn't want vengeance. Not the dramatic kind. I didn't need public shaming or screaming matches or courtroom drama. What I wanted was for her to understand the full weight of what she'd done. Not just to me, but to herself. 2 days after she left, her sister called me. I hadn't heard from her in months. They were close once, until she started pulling away like everyone else who got too close to the truth. She was crying. She didn't tell me anything, she said. Just that she had to get out. She said you were being cold. That you scared her. Scared her? That was her angle? I didn't correct the record. Not over the phone. Not yet. But I asked one question. Did she mention him? Her sister paused. No. Should she have? There it was again. The attempt to edit the story even now. I spent the rest of the day putting my house back in order. Not physically, emotionally. Everything felt different. Lighter, somehow. Quieter, sure. But clean. No lies in the walls. No betrayal in the sheets. Just silence, honest and full. Later that week, her lawyer reached out. The email was polite, overly formal, like they'd been fed a version of events where she was a poor, blindsided wife caught in an emotional hurricane. They wanted a meeting. I agreed. We met at a law office downtown. Glass walls. Polished floors. She walked in wearing a blazer I'd bought her 5 years ago, trying to look like someone in charge. But her hands kept fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. Her lawyer was young. Too eager. He launched into a speech about fairness, emotional damage, years of shared life, and what she was entitled to. I didn't say much. I let him finish, then slid a folder across the table. Inside, a timeline. Documents. Dates. Surveillance logs. The whole picture. The lawyer's voice cracked on the next sentence. He glanced at her, then at the folder, then at me. She looked straight ahead. I leaned in slightly. Just enough to cut through the performance. You're not here for a negotiation, I said. You're here for a quiet exit. The lawyer didn't argue. She did. I gave you 25 years, she said, sharp, leaning forward. You think that counts for nothing? No, I said. It counts. It's exactly how I knew how to bury you without leaving a mark. She stood up. The lawyer scrambled to follow. But her face said everything. She finally knew she'd lost something she would never get back. Not the money. Not the house. Not even me. But the illusion. The belief that she was the smarter one. The one with control. The one with options. And I walked out of that office calm, focused, and ready for whatever came next. Because this wasn't the end. This was the final breath before the quiet, methodical destruction of everything she'd built on lies. A week passed. She was out and I was alone. But the house didn't feel empty. Felt correct. The air wasn't thick with suspicion anymore. I didn't have to pretend. Didn't have to listen to the clinking of a fork against a wine glass and wonder who she'd kissed before dinner. Every room was a room again. Not a lie in wallpaper. The kids were coming home soon. I debated whether to tell them. Whether to show them the footage, the documents, the messages I'd recovered. But I decided against it. Not because I wanted to protect her. That part of me was long gone. But because I refused to let her dictate how they saw their childhood. She didn't get to take that too. Instead, I prepared. Cleaned. I refurnished a few things she'd always claimed were her taste. I left her taste at the curb. Picked up new art, warmer lighting. I was rebuilding, not mourning. Then came the call. A friend of mine. Scott. We'd been friends for over 15 years, long before my wife ever met him. We'd played poker together. Watched football on Sundays. Shared family barbecues. We weren't best friends, but we were close enough that betrayal from him should have seemed impossible. He didn't call to apologize. He called to warn me. She's telling people you emotionally abused her, he said quietly. That you cut her off, tracked her phone, tried to isolate her from friends. That the money thing was controlling. That you were, I get it, I cut in. He was quiet a moment. I didn't believe her, he said. But others might. That was the game now. She couldn't win the legal fight. She couldn't take the house or the money. So she was turning to the only weapon she had left, reputation. She was rewriting herself into the victim. And me? Into the villain. But she forgot one thing. I wasn't the man she left behind. So I started writing too. I met with a PR advisor. Not the Hollywood kind. The quiet, effective kind. We crafted a narrative, not a scandal, not an expose. Just truth, strategically placed. Photos of charity work I'd done. A scholarship I'd anonymously funded for a local school. Old clips of our family vacations where she looked just as distant then as she did at the end. Posts resurfaced, timed perfectly. Then the financial side. A subtle leak. Not from me, of course. But someone in the loop. Word got out that she'd walked away from a multi-million-dollar marriage willingly, and that she hadn't been cheated out of anything. She'd simply underestimated what he was worth. Perception is power, and now she was watching hers evaporate. 3 days later, she showed up at my door. Not with lawyers. Not with a suitcase. Alone. She looked thinner, worn. Her makeup was gone. Not because she forgot, but because it wouldn't have mattered. "You told them," she said. "No," I replied, leaning in the doorway. "I just stopped covering for you." She looked around the house. Familiar, yet foreign now. Different furniture. New art on the walls. A different scent in the air. "You're really moving on," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "And you're really still standing in a doorway that's no longer yours." That hurt her, but she stayed. "I'm losing friends," she said. "People are asking questions." "That's not me," I said. "That's the echo of everything you hoped wouldn't catch up." She stared at me, eyes glinting with something that used to be pride, now twisted into desperation. "What do you want from me, Jack?" That question hung in the air, but I didn't answer right away, because she still thought this was about wanting something from her. She didn't understand yet. This wasn't about wanting anything. This was about making sure she walked through the rest of her life knowing she lost everything. Not because I took it, but because she gambled it away and smiled doing it. "You'll find out," I said calmly, and I closed the door. Not in her face, but in her story. She stopped texting first. Then she stopped emailing. But I noticed the pattern. Every couple of days, she'd still check in with someone we both knew, some old mutual friend, an ex-coworker, even my sister once. I knew because they told me. Always the same tone. "Hey, I hope you're doing okay. I just wanted to clear the air. Jack and I are going through a tough time, and I know he might be painting a certain picture, but..." She never said the whole lie directly. She just planted the seed. Softly. Like pity bait wrapped in vague innocence. A masterclass in image control. But this time it wasn't working. Because I hadn't painted a picture. I'd simply taken down the frame she spent decades building and let everyone see the wall behind it. The first real crack appeared the night her youngest friend blocked her. A woman she used to drag on shopping trips and vacations. Someone she groomed as a social extension of her perfect life. I got a message from that same woman a few hours later. "She lied to me for months," she wrote. "Told me you were distant, cold, paranoid." And then I saw the dates. The photos. I was at brunch with her the day after one of his visits to your house. She told me you were depressed. That you were losing touch. That word again. Depressed. It was her favorite decoy. Easy to say. Easy to hide behind. An easy cover for the lies she didn't want to own. But her stories weren't syncing anymore. Her timelines were colliding. And now she was alone. The silence that followed was different. Heavier. Intentional. I could feel her disappearing from the public eye, not for reflection, but for strategy. Like a poker player folding too early so she could linger for another hand. Then 2 weeks later, I saw her. I was out on a walk. Just a loop through the neighborhood to stretch my legs. The sun was out, mild breeze, not too many people around. And then there she was across the street, sitting on the edge of a fountain, phone in hand, not scrolling, just holding it. Frozen. She looked up and saw me. She didn't smile, didn't wave, didn't move. Neither did I. We stood like that for maybe 15 seconds, two statues from a broken painting, staring at the echo of something that used to be called love but had since been renamed something less generous. She looked tired. Not in the physical sense. In the internal sense. Like a soul that had walked into too many rooms where it didn't belong. And then she did something I hadn't expected. She crossed the street. Slow. No rush. Her hands weren't shaking. She looked like someone who had already cried everything out and come back with a shell. When she stood in front of me, she said nothing for a few seconds. Then, quietly, "I didn't think it would end like this." I looked at her. Not through her. Not around her. At her. "It didn't have to end like this," I said. "I didn't want to lose everything," she whispered. "You didn't lose everything," I corrected. "You traded it. You just didn't ask the price first." That landed. She blinked. Once. Then again. And then her voice cracked, not dramatically. Not performatively. Just quietly broken. "I don't know who I am anymore." That was the first honest thing she'd said in a long, long time. I nodded. And then I told her the hardest truth of all. You were never the person you wanted people to think you were. And now that no one's clapping anymore, you're finally hearing the echo. She didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She turned and walked away without another word. And I let her go. Not just from the moment. Not just from the sidewalk. From everything. Because the real power isn't in what you say after someone destroys you. It's in how calmly you watch them burn what they built without ever touching the match. The strange thing about rebuilding is how quiet it is. No crash. No applause. Just the gentle clicking of locks as new foundations fall into place. Brick by brick. Thought by thought. I was no longer the man patching holes in a broken relationship. I was designing a life where those holes never existed. And it was addictive. I woke up before the alarm most days now. No more of her side of the bed. No more half-used lotion bottles on the sink. No more trails of perfume clouding up the hallway like invisible reminders of a woman who used to control the air. I started leaving windows open. Letting new smells in. Letting the house breathe again. Funny how a house feels different when it's not protecting someone's secrets. One morning, about 3 weeks after that silent sidewalk encounter, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Her handwriting unmistakable. Inside, 3 pages, front and back, written in looping, uneven script. Like she tried to be graceful, but the paper had absorbed her desperation anyway. The letter wasn't an apology. It was something worse. It was a memory dump. She wrote about the first time we met, some cafe neither of us remembered the same way anymore. She mentioned how she used to love the way I listened, really listened to people. She mentioned how safe she felt around me, how she'd never questioned that I had her back. And then, like a fuse burning down, the tone shifted. She blamed time. Distance. The kind of numbness that creeps in when 2 people stop talking and start performing. She blamed herself too, but gently. Just enough to sound self-aware, not enough to bleed. And then, buried at the bottom of the last page, a single line that stuck. I think you always knew I was someone else underneath. And maybe I did. But I wasn't going to write her back. Because that letter wasn't for healing, it was a test. A desperate pulse check to see if she still had some hold, some sliver of space left inside me to crawl back into. But she didn't. Not anymore. Later that week, my lawyer called. It's done, he said. The paperwork was finalized. Divorce sealed. Settlement closed. No media leaks. No drama. Just cold, clean silence. She got her slice. Much smaller than she expected. But still more than she deserved. I didn't celebrate. I didn't go out drinking. Didn't text anyone. I just sat on the porch, watched the light fade across the lawn, and realized I felt nothing. No ache. No relief. No fire. Just a space. Not empty. Available. And that was power. The kind of power she'd never understand because she'd always needed control to feel secure. I only needed peace. She tried to become someone else by breaking me. But I became someone else by letting her go, piece by piece, until nothing she did mattered anymore. I heard she moved in with him. Not right away, she dragged it out, made him chase her, probably tried to build the same fantasy she sold me years ago. But it wasn't sticking. Because she wasn't the woman he fell for either. She was a reflection of whoever gave her attention. And now that her reflection no longer included me, she was fading. One day, maybe she'll send another letter. She'll probably call it closure. But I already wrote mine. Not in words. In silence. In stillness. In a life she no longer has access to. There's a strange calm that settles in after the final storm when there's nothing left to explain and nothing left to protect. It doesn't come with a sunrise or a sudden realization. It just is. One day you wake up, make your coffee, check your emails, and realize you haven't thought about her in 2 days. 2 whole days. And when the thought does come, it doesn't sting. It doesn't freeze you mid-step or slam into your chest like a car crash memory. It just passes through. Like weather. And that's when I knew she was finally out of my system. Not just gone. Erased. But the universe wasn't done. Not yet. Because right as I was hitting my stride, closing on a second property, mentoring a new hire, even going out for drinks again, her name popped up. It wasn't a call. Not a message. It was an invite. A birthday dinner. Not mine. Not hers. Mutual friend. Someone from the old days. Neutral territory. I laughed when I read the name on the list. Not because I was afraid of seeing her, but because she still didn't understand how completely this game had shifted. She probably thought the room would pause when we locked eyes. That I'd look haunted, torn, unfinished. Maybe even beg her for closure, attention, acknowledgement. But that's not what happened. I went. Wore a dark navy suit, no tie. Clean-shaved, sharp shoes. Walked in without hesitation, gave hugs, shook hands. People noticed, sure, but not the way she hoped. They didn't look at me like a man recovering from betrayal. They looked at me like a man untouched by it. She walked in 20 minutes later. Late, of course. Always had to enter like she was being introduced. The kind of silence that builds around someone desperate to appear unbothered. But this time, no one rose from their chair. No spotlight turned. The room kept breathing. Talking. Laughing. And when she saw me, really saw me, I watched the truth flash across her face like a glitch in a mask. I wasn't broken. I wasn't waiting. I wasn't hers. She approached eventually. Not alone. She brought him. The man she'd once let into my house behind my back. He walked with that tentative, sideways energy of someone unsure whether he was welcome or being tolerated. She smiled at me. The kind of smile that begged for civility. Like we were two adults pretending the past was just a film both of us had seen, but neither truly remembered. "Jack," she said softly. I nodded. "Good evening." She waited. For what, I don't know. Maybe a crack. A flicker. Some sign that her ghost still lingered somewhere behind my eyes. But I gave her nothing. He reached out a hand, awkwardly. I shook it. Firm. Polite. She couldn't stop glancing at me. Not because I was making a scene, but because I wasn't. Because I was fine. And she was fuming behind that smile. She tried to mention something. An old vacation, a mutual friend. But I let it float in the air and then vanish. I didn't throw shade. I didn't pretend to forget. I just didn't offer more. Because you don't hand matches to the person who tried to burn you alive. After dinner, people mingled. Some stayed, some didn't. I left early. Not to avoid her, but because I had better places to be. Outside, she followed. Of course she did. "Jack," she said, catching up, voice just loud enough to matter. "Can we talk?" I turned slowly. "Talk about what?" "I don't know," she said, exhaling. "Everything. Nothing. Just, do you really hate me that much?" "No," I said. "That's the part you never understood." She tilted her head slightly. "I don't hate you," I said. "I don't think about you." She blinked. And that was it. The real burn. Not the words. The truth behind them. I got in my car. Drove off. And for the first time since this whole damn spiral started, she was the one left standing in silence. It's been almost a year now. The dust has long since settled. The noise is gone. The drama, the tension, the manipulation. It's all behind glass now. Something I look at like an old photograph. Cold, distant, and drained of color. I still live in the same house, though nothing inside it looks the same. I stripped it to the bones and built it back up. New floors, new walls, new furniture, even new lighting. But more than that, I stripped myself. I went through every inch of my life like an exorcism. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. Because she didn't just break trust. She infected the air with her lies. And I refused to breathe it any longer. The $10 million sits untouched. People think money is the ultimate revenge. It's not. Indifference is. Because the real revenge isn't what you do to someone, it's who you become when they can no longer hurt you. I've become sharper, quieter, and infinitely more dangerous in ways she'll never be able to comprehend. Not because I sought to destroy her, but because I was willing to let her destroy herself, and she did it with flair. Her life now? Scattered. She moved out of state 6 months ago. Word got around she and her new partner, the man who once played the role of the hidden lover, aren't speaking anymore. Not officially broken up. Just slowly drifting apart. Like a poorly written script where both actors forgot their lines but kept standing on stage anyway. She tried reaching out again. An email this time. Subject line, "No more lies." I didn't open it. Didn't need to. What could she say that would change anything? That it wasn't worth it? That she missed the life she used to have? That she hoped we could someday talk again? It didn't matter. Because the man who would have read that message, the one who sat at the kitchen table questioning where it all went wrong, He doesn't exist anymore. I buried him the day she walked out, and in his place stands someone she can no longer reach. Not with words, not with tears, not even with regret. I think that's what haunts her the most. Not that she lost me, but that I survived her. She underestimated me because I was quiet, because I was patient, because I never yelled or threw plates or slammed doors. But silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And when I made my move, she never even saw the pieces shifting. So if you're reading this, whoever you are, and you're still lying awake next to someone who makes you feel small, listen closely. They don't deserve the best of you. And if they ever throw you away like you were nothing, don't scream, don't beg, don't fight on their level. Just disappear from the version of their story where they still think you care. And when they come looking for you, when they realize the silence isn't anger, it's freedom, let that be your final word. Because in the end, after all the damage, all the games, all the masks, she walked out for someone else. And I said nothing about the $10 million she never knew about, but my revenge was cold, calculated, and unforgettable.